University of Findlay welcome for the Coach Boone.
And more than anything else, young people, your gracious hospitality here at the University of Findlay, where I'm told is a safe haven for young people who want to prepare themselves to take their rightful place in your senior management, the senior management of your country. And I'm convinced now, after being here today, that the true mission of this university is to foster an inclusive and welcome campus environment that respects and acknowledges diversity. This young people sets this university high and above most in our country. You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's truly an honor and pleasure for me to be a part of this program here at Findlay. And for this invitation, let me personally thank the Office of Intercultural Student Services, especially Mr. Alma T. Walker, its director, the Black Student Union, SEED, Department of Athletics, and the African Student Association for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to be here at Findlay to interact and to be part of some young people who are making a difference. What a pleasure I've had today of having dinner with not only Coach Keys and members of the steering committee and Steve Rackley, athletic director, and all of you wonderful, wonderful young people today. So let me say to you, good evening, and thank you so much for a wonderful dinner. And thank you all for taking the time from your busy schedule to come out this evening to the Coach Boone talk show. I hope that if any one of you have to get up and leave, and I truly hope that you're leaving to go to class or restroom and not because I stink. Well, we got through that, didn't we? So welcome all. My name is Coach Boone, and by now, many of you know me as the real inspiration of that blockbuster movie, Remember the Titans. And he told me to tell you last week to remind you of three-time Academy Award, Denzel Washington. He called me the other night to tell me that his son, John David, had just had a trial with some football league in Sacramento. And while I had his attention, which is sometimes hard to do, I asked him if he would join us here tonight at Findlay, since he's just down the road in Cleveland, or is it just down the road? He told me to tell you that he wished he did have time to visit with us, but unfortunately he did not. And he hopes that you won't be too disappointed with me. His wife was overheard on the phone saying, Coach, tell those dynamic students up there at the University of Findlay that she too was sorry that Denzel could not be here tonight. But if it's any consolation to any one of you, one young student, she said to tell you that you got the right person. One, I'm cheaper. Two, she said to tell you that I'm better looking than Denzel. Well, I don't know about that, guys. She probably was ticked off with them as usual. But if by chance there's at least one of you out there that just woke up when I said that and who believes that, then I'm told that you belong over at Grand Valley. Andrea told me to say that. Well, you know, we're on the road tonight, so stick around, guys. It can only get worse, believe me. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot begin to tell you how intimidated it is for me to have to deliver such an important address to such important students as you. And to tell you the truth, at this moment, I truly feel, as a result of being with you today, that if I'm going to get through this speech successfully tonight, I think I'd better try to be as wise as Solomon, as prophetic as Isaiah, and if you don't mind, I'll try to be as funny as Bernie Mac. But don't worry, young people, I hope not to bore you, and I guarantee you that I won't make any one of you run a mile or do push-ups. Andrea, I realize your first choice was Denzel Washington. And I don't blame you one bit for wanting the very best for the best done students in all of Ohio. And you can clap on that. Young people, I was a football coach some 38 years ago. Some incredible young boys in Alexandria, Virginia, who because of a federal court order were forced to integrate and consolidate 3 high schools into one within 17 days of the beginning of the football season. And all of this took place during some of the most stressful time in the history of America. And as I look out in this audience, I see quite a few parents. And your parents remember when our country was heavily involved in that terrible Vietnam War, the Pentagon Papers, the integration of schools and the busing to achieve integration, the civil rights movement, and the tragic Kent State shooting by our own soldiers here in Ohio. People all over the country had to march and sit in at lunch counters. Even some died just for the right to have a cup of coffee in a public restaurant. We were experiencing the emergence of the Black Panthers, the daily demonstration by students against the government about the separate but unequal laws of our land. And many other reasons that people felt they had to wake up angry every day about something. These were times that created the story to Remember the Titans, a story among many filmed about some incredible boys in Alexandria, Virginia, the first Confederate city in America, who for many reasons, these young boys decided that enough hate was enough. They broke the mold. These young boys decided early in their young lives to celebrate their differences and accept the soul of a person rather than reject any person based on the color of their skin. Believe it or not, this team called the Titans became one of the best football teams in America, in spite of the fact that they simply did not like one another. They did not like one another simply because they were different races, but not only because of that, but because they had been fierce rivalries as long as they had known each other. And to add fuel to an already volatile situation, I was named by the school board to become head football coach of this newly integrated high school over a legendary white coach with a steadfast following and a reputation second to none. Now, young people, you must know, like Finley, football is king in Alexandria. And I hope it's the same here at Finley. You know, football is revered more lavishly than Christmas. You can even take a man's wife out for lunch in Alexandria, but you can't fool with football or football coaches in Alexandria. It is just that powerful. And as you can imagine, racial tensions were widespread and very explosive, to say the least, especially in the white neighborhood. The city school system of Alexandria have for many years been under federal court order to integrate your schools now, but they refuse. But under heavy pressure from the Justice Department, they had to devise a plan to integrate and consolidate the 3 high schools in that city into one. And you can imagine that each of these schools had their own distinct history and tradition. And as I took over this newly consolidated team, I became the center of controversy in the state of Virginia. Many whites felt that my appointment was based solely on my race. The town felt that Coach Yost, who had more seniority in this city, should have been appointed. And I believed then, as I believe now, rightfully so. But to appoint Coach Yost, head coach, would have meant that all coaches in that city would have been white. Now, to integrate the schools without integrating the coaching staff would have defeated the entire purpose of this program. But although from vastly different backgrounds, young people, Coach Yost and I, amid all of this controversy, we found a way to put our differences aside. We found a way to celebrate our differences We found a way to accept the soul of an individual rather than reject any individual based on the color of their skin. And in doing so, we were able to mold a group of angry and unfocused boys into a dynamic winning football team. And I mean dynamic. But more than anything else, by showing these young people through our leadership that we can put our differences aside, we were able to mold a group of angry and unfocused boys into caring and responsible citizens throughout the United States and the chosen cities of the country today. If you think I'm lying, look up www.71 Original Titans and see for yourself where these young men from that football team, under great stress and adversity, have become mayors of cities, have become brain surgeons in Mesa, Arizona, fighter pilots for the United States Navy, naval commanders that shot that Tomahawk missile 300 miles away that went to Omar Gaddafi's bedroom. Thank God he had to go to the bathroom. We found a way to accept our differences, and in doing so, we were able to mold these young men into caring and responsible citizens of their chosen communities. And I believe that it was because of their determination to work together and embrace diversity in order to win, and that alone brought that city together that was torn apart by racial prejudice and hatred. This is the reason, remember, the Titans was written, not because they won a state championship. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I guess you find it very difficult at your age to believe that in the greatest country in the world, just some 40-odd years ago, blacks and whites lived in totally separate worlds where lines were never crossed. Segregation in many areas of our country seemed to have been the order of the day for some people. And you know, this program of consolidation took place on July 6th. So the upcoming football season was just around the corner when I would have to meet these kids face to face. At our very first meeting, the white kids met me in the hall and said to me that they didn't like the fact that I was black. And after the meeting, the black kids, not to let the white kids outdo them, came up to me and says, "Coach, we don't like the fact that you ain't black enough for us." Black power, brother. What a welcome. What a welcome. Now, you can't begin to imagine how ideas were rolling around in my head. How can I bring this team together? We're talking about 16 and 17-year-old youngsters who've never had any association with a person of another culture. Night after night, I couldn't sleep. I was constantly thinking of things I hoped would help bring this team together. Then the dreaded day arrived. And as they sat before me, as you are this evening, it was obvious they had no intention of sitting together as a team, not even the coaches. Instinctively, they sat in a segregated pattern. Now, if I can't get the coaches to sit together, how in the world am I supposed to get players to sit together or even play together? I decided as head coach that even though I was set up to fail, I was not going to allow this mentality to get started under my leadership. And I said to them, "Gentlemen, we are going to have a great football team, with or without you. I can't make you like each other. Heck, I don't like half of y'all. But you will respect each other to where respect becomes trust. And trust will become the emotional glue all teams and all communities need to bind and come together as a team." Reluctantly, they moved. And although they didn't speak to each other, the next day I told the superintendent that I could not bring this team together in a town that was sweltering in the venom of hate. He said to me, "You have to, because the success of this consolidation program will depend on whether this football team could show the rest of the student body that black and white can get along." He said to me,